Hi everyone. In this tutorial we're going to be making this Shelby Satchel. It's a bag pattern by Sassafras Lane Designs, and that's what it looks like there, and that's what it looks like from the outside picture. But there's some information about it, the material requirements that it needs, and the size that it will end up, and it says it's enough space for an iPad, phone, wallet, or more. 2 front pockets, 2 back pockets, 1 side zipped coin pocket, and 1 padded tablet pocket. So I've never made one before. This will be my first time making this. It looks like the pattern does come with some paper templates that I'll be making copies of using freezer paper. Freezer paper is great for making templates. And I happen to get my pattern from the Quilted Cow. It's just my show. I watch it every week. I'm dedicated to watching it. They have great fabrics, great kits, lots of great patterns out there. You can order and they'll ship it to you. But this is the kit that I got. It came with the hardware, came with the zipper. They even labeled the fabric for me. Bag flap, body, bag body, lining, and accent fabric. The only thing the kit didn't come with would be my fusible interfacing, which is 3 yards, and fusible fleece, which is 3/4 of a yard. And I happen to always keep those in stock, so I'm good to go. So I'm going to get out to cutting all of my pieces out, and then we'll start putting everything together. So I'm just cutting out my pattern pieces now. I'm starting with my main bag fabric, and I've got most of them cut out. This is the last one, but this is one of the templates that comes in your pattern, and I just traced it onto this freezer paper. And the freezer paper, if you've never used it before, it's got a shiny side, and if you put the shiny side down on your fabric and put the iron on it, it will actually stick to your fabric, which is amazing. And then when you're done cutting out, it will just peel off nicely, and then you can save it, use it again, or make new templates every time you do it. So yep, keep going. So I've got everything cut out, and then I've got everything lined according to what is supposed to go with it in the directions. So as I cut each of the materials out for each part of the bag, I went ahead and cut the lining and then adhered it until I was done. So it took me a little bit to cut in an interface, but I am ready to start piecing this together. So I'm going to start on page 3 at the top. So the first piece you're going to use is the biggest accent piece that you cut. You'll know which one is the biggest one. And all you do is fold it in half, give it a good press. Then you're going to take it to the machine and you're going to top stitch along the fold. These are the raw edges down here. So give it a top stitch up there. All right, so after it is top stitched, we're going to be installing the magnetic prongs, at least one part of them. So what you do is I have a great diagram on page 3 that tells you how much to measure down and how much to measure over. And then I'm just crossed where the intersection is going to be of those 2 lines, and that is where you're going to center your prong. So if you've never installed prongs before, they do give a website address in the pattern to a tutorial on their page that can help you with that. But I am going to show you just how I do it, but you can also follow them. So I'm going to install this one, not this one right now. This one part will get installed later, I think on the flap, but we're going to install this one on both sides. All right, so what I do is I just take this and I center it over, and then I give it press as hard as I can without bending the prongs there, and center the center over where it should be, and then press down, and then those give me my cutting marks. And when you cut through them, you only want to cut through the top layer. Do not cut through both layers. All right, so be very careful of that. Your seam ripper will be great at this, or if you have another tool, you can always fold it up like that and use maybe a really tiny rotary cutter to make your marks, or scissors, but that is what I'm going to do. I lost one. All right. See, you can barely see them, but even just pressing down, I have prong marks. So you can always lift up after you have your prong marks and take a marking, whatever you're using for marking, and then really clearly mark those prong marks. So I'm going to get going on that. So once your prong marks are made and you cut through with your seam ripper, poke the prong through, take one of these guys, slip it on, and then I always use the back of my seam ripper, and then I bend the prongs outward. So I'm going to do that real quick. So that's what it looks like when it is done. Now the pattern does recommend to take some either fusible lightweight interfacing or fabric tape and then put that over. I'm going to go fuse it down just to help prevent wear and tear as it uses, so it doesn't keep rubbing up against your material. And so I'm going to go do that. All right, so now that that's done, you're going to take each side and you're going to fold it back according to the pattern. And I'm in the first step on page 3, and this is number C and D within that first step. But anyway, I just folded it back according to how much it should be, and I gave it a good press on both sides. And then we're going to take it to the machine and sew really close to this folded edge on both sides. We're going to top stitch it. So now what you're going to do is you're going to find your front center bag piece, and you are going to match up, especially the bottom here of this side, but then you're going to match up the raw edges, and this piece is going to be bigger than this piece because it's going to be able to like poof out, I don't know, stand out from it. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just base stitch. So I'm just going to sew all the way down real close, 1/8 of an inch or scant 1/8, just to hold this in place on both sides. All right, so once you've done that, now you're going to take, these are the front side pieces, and you're going to align everything here on both sides. So everything is face down, clipped, and then I'm going to sew all the way down, attaching this to this part on both sides. Okay, so now that those are sewed on, you're just going to fold them back and give it a good press. All right, and then you're going to go and you're going to top stitch really close to the seam here. You're not going to stitch in the ditch, but you're just going to top stitch close to that seam, and that will help secure this inside that stitch as well. And you're going to do that on both sides there. All right, so now that that is done, got my top stitching done, we're gonna fold in or tuck in that extra pocket side there on both sides, and I just put a clip here, but you can also pin up here if that is if you think that will help. You know, everyone is different with their comfort level. And then you're gonna find the middle of this pocket here. All right, I folded mine on top of each other. I found the line. It was a little off at the top because it got off, but then I used my ruler to measure out, and then I made my sew line. You don't have to do that. If you just want to indent, you can fold it in half, find your indent line, whatever is your preferred method and comfort level of this, because you're going to turn this into 2 pockets. So the pattern says to start from here, the bottom edge, and to sew up. And then once you get up there, you're going to keep the needle down. You're going to lift your presser foot up, and then you're going to turn this, all right, whichever way it turns in your machine, and then you're going to stitch right back down on top of the stitch line you already did. Just give it extra strength. I'm using like a double stitch for my top stitching, so it will reinforce it already as I'm stitching, so I'm only going to do it once. All right, so that is done. So now we're going to find the bottom piece here. It's very specific in the pattern, and we're going to take that and we're going to do what we did like with the side pieces. We are going to align that along the bottom, and then we're going to stitch those 2 pieces together. All right, and then like the other one, I folded it down. I made sure my seam was to my piece, and then once I ironed it, I gave it a top stitch along the edging there, and that also allowed my seam to be further sewed down, so it's not poking up all over the back. All right, and this is kind of like, it gives a little bit of a stretch there at the top, like that. All right, good work. Onward. So I'm still at page 3. I'm at the bottom now of page 3 where it says constructing the flap. All right, so on one of your flaps, this is going to be the inside flap because we're going to attach these other magnetic pieces. Same process. I have measured over and I have measured up according to the pattern, and I have found the intersection where my two lines cross, and that's going to be my central point. I'm going to follow my method of doing things, align the center, give it a good press, make my indentations, rip through, and then continue to put them in until they're completely in and secure. All right, so there they are, all done, and I put the interfacing over them to secure. All right, so now you're gonna take this flap and the other flap, and you're gonna put them right sides together, and you are gonna align everything, clipping or pinning, whichever is your method of choice, or nothing at all. Some of you are just free sewers. And then you're gonna stitch them together, starting at the top, all the way down on the curve, along the bottom, around the curve, and up to the top, back tacking when you begin and when you end. And then we'll turn it inside out. All right, so before you turn it inside out, and if you already have, go ahead and just revert it to this stage. It wants you to trim your seam to 1/8 of an inch. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim up my seam allowance here to 1/8 of an inch. And then we'll turn it inside out. All right, so that's what it looks like. There's the front. Now this is going to be the front. This is going to be the inside. So I just stuck my hand in there, popped out all my seams, and as I was ironing it, I just gave a good finger roll to make sure no fabric was sticking in my seam, and I gave this a really, really good press. Now I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to top stitch close to this edge all the way around. All right, meet you back here. There we are, all top stitched. Now I'm on page 4, and we're going to add the straps and hardware to the front of this flap now. All right, so to construct the straps that are going to go on the flap, the first thing you need to do is take one of your short ends and fold it in 1/4 of an inch. All right, because you don't want raw edges sticking out on your bag. The other raw edge is going to get sewn in when you connect the flap to another piece of the bag, so only one side has to get turned in. Then you're going to fold it in half all the way down, and that's going to give you your center line, which you need. Give it a really good press. Open it up, and then you're going to take each of these raw edges and fold them into the center. Give that a good press, and then you're going to fold it all the way over one more time. Give that a really good press, and then you're going to take this to the machine, and you're going to top stitch from the top, that's the raw edge there, all the way down, pivot, go this way, pivot again, and then back up. And you're going to do that to both straps. So there they are finished. This is the raw edge up there. So from the bottom, okay, remember, this is the raw edge up there. All right, this is your folded over edge. You're going to measure up according to the pattern, and I made my line, and then you're going to cut. All right, because the piece of hardware is going to connect to these two pieces in the middle there. So after you've cut off the bottoms there, then you're going to take these and measure according to the pattern and then trim them up to the desired length. You don't have to cut off much, but you will be cutting off a little bit there to make them the right size. So after you cut them, I've never done this stitch before. I had to look up a tutorial. It's called the satin stitch, and it wants you to satin stitch the raw edge. So yeah, this is the folded edge, so that's what it would look like. Those are the edges that I did. That goes that way, yeah. So I would recommend just looking at your manual for your sewing machine, or if you already know how to do one, or YouTube has a lot of great tutorials. I had to look one up for Bernina because that's my machine and figure out how to do it. And there's really not a picture in there. So I just did the best that I could, and we're going to continue on. I think it's just to help the raw edge from fraying. So here we go. So now you're going to take the short piece and you're going to get your hardware. I need to turn mine so that is hidden. But anyway, you're going to fold it over to the back about 1/2 inch. And then you're going to stitch this down, top stitch this down. And you're going to sew over that satin stitch. Okay, give it a try. And then I'll do that one. All right, so you're going to repeat that to the other ends with the satin stitch. And so that's what mine ended up looking like on that side. And now I'm going to attach this one into there. All right, so now that those are all attached, from the top here, this is the raw end. It wants you to mark down a little bit because these are going to get attached to the flap and you're going to be sewing on them. And then this is the line where it's going to pivot and you're going to sew and then turn it and go back down. So I did that, do that. So with the outside flap, remember that's the inside. You're going to measure in from each side. And then you're going to lay down your strap and then you're going to clip, pin, whatever you want into place. And then you're going to sew down, pivot, sew down, and that line you drew, you're going to pivot and sew. And then you're going to do the same to this strap, down, pivot, pivot, sew up, and then on that chalk line, pivot and sew. And then down here, you're going to do the same thing. Up, pivot, down, okay, like a rectangle. All right, off we go. All right, so there's what mine looks like. It doesn't have any new stitching here because I just decided to stitch over the previous stitching that I had, but you can see where I pivoted there to go back up. All right, so I'm on page 4 and I'm at the bottom of page 4 now, constructing the back pocket. We'll set this aside. So now you're gonna take the back pocket piece and the lining back pocket piece, which is a little bit bigger. They are not the same size, so be careful and pay attention to your directions and the measurements. And you are going to put them right sides together. And then you're going to sew them together all the way up there. 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, once you're done sewing it, you're going to open that seam up and iron it nice and flat. Then you're going to put it so it's wrong sides together and you're going to line up these bottom edges. And yeah, the lining does come over a bit. That's okay. That's what you want. And then you're going to take it to the machine and you're going to top stitch on this side of the lining and then you're going to top stitch on this side of the lining close to the seam. So you'll have top stitching on both sides all the way down. So I missed a step before I went to construct the back because I got to a step and I was like, what? So I had to go back and it was the last 2 lines of the last piece. And I had to satin stitch the top here to finish the raw edge. That's my best. And then I got the, what is this one? The bag back? Yeah, this is the bag back and you measure down and you can barely see my line, but I made my line. So this goes aligned with that line. Yep, and then once it's aligned and centered, I'm going to 1/4 inch sew all the way down to attach the two. Then we'll get back to the other pocket piece. But while I'm here, this is what my pocket piece looks like, stitched at the top there. All right, so with the next step, the pocket would get placed over like that, but if you were to reach inside the pocket, you would see the satin stitching. Now, you may be better at satin stitching than I am, but I don't really want this to show. So I'm going to do something that I've done in other projects. I had some extra material, so I cut a strip that was the length of from here, the back pocket, here to here. And then I did about, I think I did about 1.5 inches wide. And I folded in each of the short ends so there would be no raw edge. I guess it wouldn't matter because this is getting sewn in, but that's just what I did. And then I folded this in half so I could find the center line here and pressed it. And then I took each of these long edges and folded it into the center, like if you were making a strap, similar to what we did. And then what I'm going to do, because I really don't want my satin stitches to show, I'm going to put that I'm going to align it just so. I think this is just the perfect width. And then I'm going to clip it in place, and then I'm going to top stitch all the way around the perimeter of the strip, and that's just going to hide that satin stitching for me. So you do not have to do this, but it's something that I want to do because I don't want to see the satin stitching. So I'm going to do this, and then we'll come back and attach the pocket. All right, so now we're going to lay the back pocket right over it, and that's what it ended up looking like. I like this a lot better than the satin stitching seeing there. So before I clipped it into place, I folded this in half to find my center line, because we're going to end up sewing that there to divide it into 2 pockets. If you don't want a pocket, just leave it a long pocket, but I'm going to do the 2 pockets. You just align the bottom edge and then clip, and then we're going to sew all the way around the side, on the bottom, and on the side, basting this pocket. So like a 1/8 of an inch seam all the way along, just to secure the pocket to the back. All right, so there it is completed. We have it basted, and I have sewn down my pockets, and I've got 2 pockets there. All right, we are on to page 5. It's like divided into 3 steps. So I'm going to do the first third of it next, which is constructing the padded inside pocket. All right, so now we're going to make the inside pocket piece. So we're going to take the smaller of the pocket pieces, and fleece is already fused, and the fleece wasn't cut to size for a reason, because it left about 1/4 of an inch on each side, which is what you want. So when you're fusing it, make sure that you leave about 1/4 of an inch on the top and the bottom that doesn't have fusible fleece. So this is going to go right side up. Your zipper is going to go right side down. This is going to be hanging off. You're going to align that, and you're going to take your zipper foot and you're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch all the way down to secure it. So there it is sewn on. Now we're going to take the other piece, some flyaways, and we're going to turn these right side together, and we're going to align everything. So this one is shorter than this one. And once all the edges are aligned and the sides are aligned, we're just going to top stitch over that stitch that we already did all the way down to connect the pieces. So this is what we just sewed. Now we're just going to take this piece and flip it up and back. And then we're going to take this to the presser, the iron, and we're going to make sure this is nice and flat on both sides, and we're going to give that a nice press down. And then we're going to do some top stitching close to the zipper up here. All right, once they are sewn together and you have them top stitched, I'm not sure if these are supposed to be even. In the picture it looks like they're supposed to be even, but I guess I'll figure that out soon. I also have my zipper on the different side. With them, that should be over there, but I did it a little bit differently, but it will still work out just fine. So now that those 2 are done, we're going to take the biggest one here, and we are going to put that right, align everything there, and then I'm going to sew that piece onto the zipper. Okay. So if you paid attention, did it, your zipper pull will be over here, but everything else should look the same. All right, so that one has been added, and now I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to take the 4th piece here. It has the lining on it, and I'm going to line everything, and then I'm going to clip it, and then I'm going to turn it over, and then I'm going to stitch on that stitch that I just did, connecting everything together. We have a big sandwich here, a lot of pieces there. So to complete it, I folded the 3rd and the 4th part back, just like we did here. And then I gave it a good press, and then we stitched close to the zipper there. So that's what the back looks like. That's what the front looks like. All right, so in this step, my zipper's over here. Yours might be over here if you followed the way they told you to put it in. But anyway, we're going to fold the top fabrics to the back. All right, and then there's a reason why one was longer. These should match up together. And then these should match up together. So I'm going to take a moment to like go clip everything, and then we'll be back. So it'll look something like this once everything is matched up. Like the small ones are matched up inside, and the long ones are matched up inside, and then you've got this top edge here. So this is already top stitched, but I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to top stitch along the top here. All right, so now you're going to take the back and the outermost pieces and you're going to fold them up away from the pocket pieces. So this is the inside, I think, coin pocket. So what you're going to do is you're going to match up the bottom. Now, if they don't match up, mine are pretty close to matching up. All right, you can trim so that they match up. But since mine are pretty close, I just went with the next step. So you're going to measure up a certain amount according to the pattern. So I'm on page 5, and this is point H on page 5. And then you're going to go from here and measure over and make a mark. Then you're going to take your ruler and align the 2 marks and then draw a diagonal line there. I did it on that side. Then you're going to take this to the machine and you're going to sew on that line. You might want to shorten your stitches. They want tiny stitches on this. So just go ahead and use regular or make your stitches length a little bit shorter, smaller to sew these. All right, so you do along the bottom too, and then you're going to take your scissors or rotary cutter, and then you're going to trim 1/4 inch away from your sew line to trim off the bulk on the corners. All right, so next you're going to fold those pieces back down, and so your coin pocket's going to be hidden in there. You're going to align everything, clip, pin, and then you're going to baste a scant 1/4 inch all the way around. You're going to sew, okay? All right, we're going to turn this to the back, and we're going to cut and make sure our Velcro is the correct length. I'm on the bottom of page 5, and I am on step K. And I found the center of my back, and then so I centered my Velcro. And now I'm just going to stitch all the way around it, maybe twice, just to really secure it, the perimeter. Okay. All right, so that is sewed on. That's what it looks like from the back. That's what it will look like from the front. And now we're getting another piece of the back lining, and I folded it in half to find the center. This is the soft part of the Velcro, and it's supposed to hang vertically, and I've got it attached and centered, and I'm just going to sew a scant 1/4 inch seam to secure it. Then from the bottom, I'm going to draw up, measure up, and then draw a line there according to step L on page 5. And then we'll go on to page 6. All right, so we're going to take this pocket piece and this piece, and there is that line that we marked, and we're going to align the raw edge up against that marked line. So it's going to be, over it a little bit. And then we're going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down, securing the 2 pieces together. All right, so after you stitch them together, you're going to take your padded pocket and flip it up onto this one, and you're going to give it a good press, and then you're going to stitch along the bottom there. So next you're going to baste this down onto that, and I just followed the same sew line I had before on both sides. And then you're going to trim that zipper. So before you baste, you want to make sure your zipper pull is actually pulled inside. And then baste everything. And then you're just going to trim so everything is aligned and straight as can be on both sides. And I did mine in a previous step. But if you haven't done it already, this is the time to make sure your zipper pulls in, baste your sides, and then trim up everything on the sides. Alright, so using this corner template, and I made a copy. They say freezer paper, but I just made a copy and cut it out of paper. You're going to take the lining front, you're going to take the lining back here, you're going to take that piece, and you're going to take that piece, and you're rounding all these edges. So you rounded, and so what you do is you just take your template and you just make sure that the sides are touching here and here, and then you draw or mark the rounded onto your fabric, and on this side I just inverted it or flipped it and then did the same thing. Lined up the side with the bottom and then drew my mark, and I'm just going to take my scissors and trim that. All right, so now it's time to make your gusset, and the gusset is going to connect the front and back of your bag to give you that width inside your bag. So these are the two pattern A pieces that were tapered, and you want the tapered ends at the end, or the, okay? And then you've got this middle piece, and then here's the other gusset, and it tapers in, so it kind of gets a little more narrow towards the end here. So we're going to sew all these together to make one piece. All right, so there's what it looks like, and you want to iron those seams open. So now you're going to fold your gusset piece in half and find the middle. And then you're going to take this piece and also fold it in half and find the middle. Then you're going to align those middles together, and that's where your first clip is going to go. And then you're just going to start lining up your gusset and clip it all the way at there, and then come back to the middle and then clip all the way this side all along the curve and up to this part. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So this is what it should look like. And if you're using pins, use as many pins as you want, use as many clips as you want. If it's a little longer than the bag, don't worry, don't freak out, that's okay. If it aligns perfectly, awesome. Mine happens to be just a little bit longer. So now that I've got it clipped, I'm going to start, make sure you back tack, and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Be very slow and careful on your corners because you don't want your fabric to not align and slip out of the seam. And then I'm just going to keep going all the way around till I'm done. All right, so now you're going to attach the other side of the gusset to the bag back. Okay, so there's the bag back. There's the side which is finished. And you're going to attach it. And it's going to attach to this front piece here, and you don't want the side flaps to get in the way, so I have clipped them in. I might add another clip up there just to make sure they don't get caught when I sew it together. All right, let's sew those together. All right, so now you're going to repeat the process with your lining. There's my gusset pieces with the tapered ends out, my middle, my other to the tapered end, ironed my seams flat. And then I've got my two lining pieces here, and I'm going to start with probably this one, and I'll attach the gusset, sew it, and then attach it to this and sew it. So I have my inside piece done. So there's what it looks like with the gusset sewed into both of these pieces. And you can check it, same with the other piece, just go around, see if you like it. It was a little bit harder to work with the fleece. I mean, it's not really hard, but a little bit harder because it doesn't give as much, but I was able to get it, and we're moving on. All right, so now we're going to construct the handles, and we've got two really long pieces, and then we put them together perpendicularly, and we sew in a 45-degree angle. I just fold this top piece back, and then I give it a finger press, and then I find where I'm supposed to sew on. And then after that, we are going to just trim it 1/4 of an inch away from the seam out and give it a trim. So after you've connected the two handle strips, pulled, trimmed where I showed you, then you're going to start making the strap. And it's just like how we made the straps earlier. You're going to fold everything in half, and you're going to find that center end. And then you're going to open it up, and you're going to take this end and fold it into the center and give it a good press. And then you're going to fold it in half again. Once that is all done, you're going to top stitch all the way around, about 1/4 of an inch or scant 1/4 of an inch, all the way around the perimeter of your strap. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So from your giant long strap, you are going to cut off 2 equal smaller pieces. And I'm on page 7 and under the construction of the handles and handle tabs. And these are going to be the tabs that are going to go through these guys. So you're going to put your handle aside, and you're going to loop these. Yeah, you want that covered. You're going to loop these through here, and then you're going to come, slid right off. You're going to bring that right over, and then you're just going to baste those ends together, and then you'll do the same with that one. All right, so this piece is turned inside out, and then you can see that. You can see the gusset, and then you're going to take those, and you're going to center them on the gusset on the side, clip them, and then once they're both clipped into place, you're going to take it to the machine and baste it down. So it'll just hang down, but you're going to baste it so it will hold to where it's supposed to be. All right, so you're going to turn this bag inside out again. Tuck those in, and then you're going to turn your lining right side out. So you're going to put the lining inside the bag, and you want to make sure the it's back to back, and like front to front. All right. With the flap, you're going to want to, I rolled it and then tucked it inside there so it's out of the way. There we go. So I have everything clipped together, and as I was reading it, it said sew all the way around, and then I realized I forgot to leave an opening in my gusset in the lining. So I had to go back and open up a hole so I can turn my bag inside out through that after I'm done sewing. So I'm going to stuff this back in, and then I'm going to sew my bag all the way around a couple times just to really reinforce it. And then as you're sewing, make sure everything is lined up, that nothing slips. And so all your seams will align nicely. And then we'll turn it inside out through that hole. If you forgot, you're going to have to go back and seam rip. I'm sorry. I'll try to add a note of it in the video. All right, when you turn it inside out, you're just going to want to check that everything caught really well, that nothing isn't sliding out of your seams. And once that's done and you're happy with it, then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so this is the time to put your hand through that opening and really make sure everything is poked out and smooth. All your corners are everywhere. Now I'm gonna end up just sewing this closed right now. It says hand sew, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna hand sew it. I might just try to machine stitch it because I don't mind a little bit showing, but if you hand sew it, then it should be an invisible seam. So I'm gonna do that. Machine stitch it. I'm gonna try to machine stitch it. So I just turned it under and clipped it, and hand sewing is gonna be the prettiest, but I'm just gonna machine stitch that. Yep, because I avoid hand sewing at all cost. So I pushed my lining after I sewed it. Honestly, it's not that bad. Do what you prefer. So I pushed that lining back in, and then I've aligned my seams and I've clipped it because I'm going to do a top stitch all the way around the bag at the top. Maybe about 1/4 of an inch or a scant 1/4 of an inch all around the top. And then we will put that handle through our hardware and it will be finished. Yay! All right, and there she is. I always do the handles somehow differently. I don't know why I always get messed up on them. I ended up watching a tutorial and I realized I did a little something wrong. Didn't want to take it apart. So I finally figured out doing it my way. But the website, this company's website does have a tutorial on how to do those. You can find plenty on YouTube. But strap is plenty long. It extends really long. If you open it up, there are your 2 pockets there in the front that you can use. And then on the inside, you have the zip pocket and you have the Velcro pocket there. I mean, I think this is meant to slide like a tablet or something into because it's pretty padded. And you've got your zipper there. Okay. I mean, it's a good size bag. And then on the back, you also have these 2 pockets that you can use. So I've made a lot of bags. This was my first time making this one. Made some goofs. Had to go back and seam rip some stuff out. I had to take a few breaks on this one because my brain was kind of whirling on some of them. But overall, pretty decent. I like the pattern overall. And since I've had experience making bags, it did help, even though I had to take some moments and just breathe and step away from it and then come back to it. So again, this was the Shelby Satchel by Sassafras Lane Designs. And if you're using cork or vinyl or faux leather, some of these steps will be a little bit different, but they explain it in the steps because some of them are not as foldable as fabric. So really pay attention to your directions, and happy sewing.